At approximately 8:30 this morning, an ambulance paramedic crew was in the vicinity of Notre Dame and Furby Avenue when they noticed an individual who was clearly in need of assistance. The crew pulled their ambulance over to the curb and got out to begin assessing that individual. Within 70 seconds, the crew realized that individual was threatening harm to them, and they activated their emergency communication button on their radio. The individual ran past the crew, gained access to the front cab of the ambulance, and subsequently drove the ambulance away from the scene. A very short time later, I should add that the police were immediately notified. They were notified of the incident when the emergency button was pressed by the paramedic crew. A very short time later, the ambulance unit collided with a building at the corner of Yonge and Notre Dame, and the individual was apprehended by the Winnipeg Police Service and was subsequently transported to hospital by another ambulance paramedic unit. We're very grateful that nobody suffered any, none of our crews and none of the public, apart from the individual in question, suffered any physical injury in this incident. Of course, our crews are quite shaken by the incident, and they are receiving the appropriate support from our critical incident stress team. That pretty much summarizes the incident at this point.
Okay, we'll move to questions. Diana from CJOB.
Good morning, Diana from CJOB. Were paramedics en route to a call at this time, or were they just kind of driving and spotted the van?
It's the latter situation. They were not on a call. They were actually en route to another station to retrieve some supplies, and happened upon this individual on the street.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, I know we had a couple emergency responder vehicles stolen last year, the police car, the fire truck, now the ambulance, of course. You mentioned some kind of emergency button on the radios, but are there any measures in place to prevent this after something like an ambulance? And if so, what do those kind of safeguards look like? Well,
so first answer is yes, there are safeguards in place. I'm certainly not going to provide detail about them, but I'll go back to the situation I described it. This call, first of all, the crew happened upon it, and second of all, it deteriorated within 70 seconds, within a minute and 10 seconds of them encountering this individual on the street. So the time course of that, I think, is quite clear. The primary concern of that ambulance paramedic crew was that patient that they observed, and to simply pull the unit over and immediately attend to that patient is exactly what our ambulance paramedics or our firefighters would do in any situation.
Stephanie, CTV.
No.
Hi, good morning. Stephanie from CTV here. Is this meth related?
The circumstances are such that release of any sort of information like that is really protected by FIA, so I'm not really at liberty to speak to that, and it's also very early, so it would be very difficult to substantiate that definitively.
Okay, are you able to describe more of what this person was dealing with, why the crew Like, what made them pull over? Like, what type of situation was this?
So again, there are some details I've seen that are already in the media. Regrettably, well, perhaps not regrettably, that does not release me from my obligations under FIA. So what I will say is that the behavior and condition of the individual was such that it was obvious that that individual required some help. And that's what our crew did. They stopped the ambulance and pulled it over to the curb and attended to the individual.
Will from Global?
Yeah, hi there, Will from Global here. I'm wondering if you can tell us, do you expect this incident and the similar incidents we just talked about will lead to any changes in protocol?
What I expect, certainly from our crews, is that they will attend to clearly emergent situations with the health and safety of the patient and themselves first and foremost. So we would never put procedures in place that would hinder them from doing that. Of course, this incident will be reviewed internally, but we will always make sure that our crews are able to do their jobs, to do it safely, but to do their jobs effectively.
No, thanks, no follow-up this time.
Okay, Nellie from CBC?
Hey there. We're hearing from witnesses that say that this man was naked. Can you speak to that?
Well, again, and I do understand that that detail was in a media article that has already appeared this morning. Again, I'll speak to the requirements of FIA, and they really bind me and anyone associated with the incident from releasing any such details. So, no, I can't speak to that.
Okay. Can you just tell us then what exactly the man did that was threatening to the crew members? Could you just sort of describe the actions that he took that was a concern for the crew?
I certainly don't want to get into any details at this point in time, and I would say we are still very early and want to make sure that the investigation is both the internal investigation and any police involvement are thoroughly considered. But I will just say that the action of the crew was absolutely appropriate. They interpreted it as a threat. They pushed their emergency button and made sure that they made themselves as safe as possible. And we're grateful for that their physical safety was maintained.